Hello everyone, this is Ashley from ACMS team over at State Hearings, and this video is going to show county users and responsible agency users how to use all the different tasks that are available in ACMS and what those tasks do. So the first task, there's about a dozen of them that I'm going to show you. The first task is the Assign Hearing Representative task. Of course, you can always open one of those if an agency needs to assign a hearing rep, or mostly for counties and responsible agencies, you're actually going to be closing the Assign a Hearing Rep task. So let me show you how to do that. First of all, how do you know you have a case that has that Assign Hearing Rep task? Well, if you go onto your home screen and you go down to this queue called Cases Without a Hearing Rep, you're going to see all the cases for your agency that needs a hearing rep assigned. So all you need to do from this point is just to click on the case, and it's going to automatically take you to the Contacts tab and open up a brand new contact field, and you're going to assign your hearing rep. It's super easy. But before we do that, I want to go to the Task tab and show you the open Assign a Hearing Rep task. Currently I'm assigned as El Dorado County here, and that's the task that actually is going to get closed when we actually assign the hearing rep. So let me go back to the Contact tab and let's do that. I'm going to go ahead and assign a hearing rep. So I'm going to say this is a primary hearing rep for El Dorado County, and I'm going to let it populate these. So I'm going to just pick me, and it automatically knows from the name of their user what their email address is, because that's their username. And then you're going to pick a phone number for the hearing. That's the hearing phone number is required. If this is a phone hearing, this is the phone number that the judge is going to call for the hearing. There's other things that you can add in here if you so desire. You can put in that you prefer things via email address. I think most people prefer that rather than getting snail mail. And you can also put in your desk number. I know it says personal phone number, but that's really your desk number. And that's a number that will appear if somebody needs to maybe call you and ask you. Most of the time I think people email though. But this hearing number is required because that's sometimes, you know, during the phone hearing, the judge needs to know what number to call to get a hold of you as the representative for the county on this case, or responsible agency. All right, so we're going to hit save. And now it populates in there. And this is case number 11222. So let's go back home. Let's check that Cases Without a Hearing Rep and see if that 11222 appears. Nope, it's all gone. So 11222. Let's take a look at the task list and see that that task for Assign a Hearing Rep is closed. So that's how you assign a hearing rep. I think you can even open one. Let's try doing that. So let's do a new task, and you can do open Assign a Hearing Representative task, and you can pick this particular appeal only has El Dorado County involved, so that if for instance you needed to assign a different hearing rep, you can maybe open this up, but usually you won't have to do this. The next task that I'm going to show you in ACMS is how to do a bifurcation / admin dismissal requests. So on occasion, if an agency thinks that a case needs to be dismissed because of a jurisdictional issue, or perhaps the deadline wasn't met for the appeal, or some other issue that merits a dismissal for this case, you can open up a bifurcation / admin dismissal request. So let me open up a case that needs to have that done. So find the case that you need to open an admin dismissal or bifurcation task, and all you'll do is go up to Task, and you can hover and hit New Task, or you can click on the Task tab and hit this plus New button, Either way, it's going to take you to this page. Then under this drop down under task type, you're going to select Bifurcation / Admin Dismissal Request. And then you can put in the task notes like this case should be bifurcated because blah, 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 blah. Now, a lot of times when you're asking for administrative dismissal or a bifurcation, you're going to write a letter and send that letter to the claimant. So, since you already have the letter, you might as well browse your computer and upload this letter to this task. So, find the letter on your computer and upload it. And that way the judge can see the letter that you sent to the claimant. And hit save. And you should see a screen that looks similar to this. Now, anytime you open a new task, I always like to say, go back to that task listing by using your breadcrumbs and just double check to make sure it's in there. And this task is indeed in there. Now, somebody from State Hearings is going to go ahead and look at this task, and they're going to actually do the work. They're going to look at the letter, and they're going to pass it on to a judge to see if it should be bifurcated or dismissed. So just remember, when you're opening your new task, that this assigned user, always leave that blank. It's not a required field, so you should just leave that blank, because the assigned user is the person that's going to actually look at this letter and actually work it and resolve this task. So always leave that blank when you're requesting something from State Hearings. So that's how you do a bifurcation or admin dismissal. Pretty simple. Let's go on to our next task. And this task is called CCS Review Task. So some Medi-Cal cases are identified as a California Children's Services case, and it requires some special handling. Agencies, if they suspect that a case is a California Children's Services case, they can open up this task, this CCS review task, and have State Hearings review it and make sure it is a California Children's Services case. So let's practice that. Let me get to a case that I suspect is a California Children's Services case. And then again, for a new task, I'm going to hover over Task and click on New Task. It's going to send me to a blank task page. Under Task Type, I'm going to select CCS Review. Again, you're going to leave this assigned user field blank. It's not required. And then maybe do a brief description of why you think this needs a CCS review. There is a child, blah, blah, blah. I think this is a California Children's Services case. All right, and hit save. So it looks a little bit different from the last task that we did. So you're going to want to go back to that task listing like I suggested, just to make sure that it's in there. And as you can see, it sure is. So then somebody in State Hearings is going to take a look at this task and see if it really fits the criteria for a California Children's Services case, and they will take care of that. That's super easy. And that's all there is to know about this CCS review task. Our next task is called an Expedite request. So let me pull up a case that is going to have an Expedite request. So if a claimant needs to fast track a hearing, the county or responsible agency can open up an Expedite request task on behalf of the claimant. The agency should fill in the task information, and that includes the claimant's reason. So let's go ahead and open one of those up. So I'm going to hover over Task for this case and hit New Task, and I'm going to open an Expedite request. Again, you're going to leave that assigned user field blank. There's also a task notes field if you want to put in any notes of why this person needs an expedite. You probably should put their reason in there. So the claimant needs an expedited hearing because, and they should have a really good reason. The only way that state hearings grants expedites is if the claimant has a very compelling reason that this hearing needs to be moved up in time. So whatever reason they put in here, a judge is going to take a look at that and say, yes, that's a really good reason to expedite this case, or they're going to say, no, that's not a good reason. Either way, they're going to fill out a grant or denial. Even though this pops up for you, this is really the part where the judge fills in, because that goes into the letter. So all you have to do is really make the request and put in the reason, and then hit save. And just like with all of our other tasks, you're going to want to go into that task listing and just make sure there's an open expedite request task. There you go. Then State Hearings is going to take a look at that request. They're going to take a look at the reason, and they're either going to grant it or deny it. Either way, the person's going to get a letter. And you, as the hearing representative, will be able to see that letter in the Documents tab, and you can see whether that expedite was granted or denied. And that's it for the expedite request task. The next task I'd like to show you is the improper claimant task. So let's pull up an appeal that we suspect is an improper claimant. Now, what is an improper claimant? If an agency knows that the person that's filing the appeal is not the benefit recipient or the potential benefit recipient of whatever services, the agency can open up this improper claimant task. For example, if if I am opening up an appeal on behalf of another person, then all of that information pertains to them and not me, and I don't yet have a permission to represent that claimant. So before I can have access to that appeal information, it's what you call an improper claimant. So state hearings and the counties and responsible agencies really should not be sharing information with me, because I'm not the claimant until I have a piece of paper signed by the claimant saying that I am authorized to be their representative. So if you suspect that that is happening in a case, you can open up an improper claimant task. So you would do that by, again, hovering over Task and clicking on New Task. It's going to look pretty much the same as all the other. And then you're going to check under Task Type, Improper Claimant. Improper Claimant Task. Again, you're going to leave this assigned user blank, because somebody here in State Hearings is going to take care of this. And then put in your notes, like claimant or person, this person is requesting on behalf of a claimant, but there is no authorization. So improper claimant reason, probably the same thing. You can probably put it in both. And then hit save. You do have to put something in both of those. And the task is open, but let's verify. Great. So now that this improper claimant task is open, what happens is ACMS is super smart. It's going to send a letter to the claimant letting them know that they need to fill out a form. So let's take a look at the Document tab, and let's take a look at that improper claimant letter. So here's what the improper claimant letter looks like. And then it gives them some examples of what kind of proof would be acceptable to prove that they can act on behalf of this claimant. And if they don't have any of that proof, we also have a a form that they can fill out and have the claimant sign saying that they allow this person to represent them in the case. Now this letter is going to go out in the mail first thing tomorrow morning or late tonight. So if you open an improper claimant task and you made a mistake, you didn't mean to, you need to let the ACMS folks know so that we can keep this from going out. Because if this letter goes out to the person, then what happens is they get a little confused. So let us know if you opened up this task in error, and we can get this cleared up. Another thing that happens when you open an improper claimant task, if you go to the main appeal page, you're going to see this great big huge red flag saying improper claimant identified. That's going to stay on there until they get one of those items of proof to represent this claimant. Okay, that is the improper claimant task. The next task that I would like to show you is the manually schedule hearing task. Now this isn't used very often, but every once in a blue moon, maybe a claimant tells you that I can only attend a hearing on certain days. The example I like to use the most is if somebody is maybe a college student and they take classes on Tuesdays and Thursdays, but they're available for hearings on Mondays and Wednesdays. We can put that into their appeal so that they can get some special scheduling and they don't have to miss one of their college courses. So how do you do that? Hover over task, again, hit new task. You're going to select a task called manually schedule hearing. So most of our hearings are scheduled automatically. All the cases get put into OptiPlanner, and OptiPlanner is a computer program that goes through all the cases and it takes things into account like when is the due date of this case, when was the case filed, and it puts it all on a calendar. And it tries to make sure that it's not booking hearing reps at the same hearing time or judges at the same time, or you know, and they're taking into account the claimant's preferences and all sorts of things, but by the magic of computing it happens. But every once in a while we want to hand schedule a case. So this is the task that does that. So this is going to hand schedule this case. That means one of our schedulers is going to take this case and put it on a calendar manually rather than going through that automatic process. So under task notes, you're going to, again, leave that assigned user blank. Under task notes, you can say a claimant goes to college and can only attend hearings on a Monday or Wednesday. And of course, that one doesn't have a drop down, but it's not required, so I'm not worrying about that. So scheduling requirements, you're going to say yes. And those scheduling preferences is please schedule hearing on Mondays or Wednesdays. All right, and we're going to hit save. It says that the task is open, but you know what I like to do is go back up to that task listing, just make sure that it's in there, and yes, indeed, it's in there. Great. Now that's going to put this case onto one of our scheduler's queues, and the scheduler is going to see that this one needs hand scheduling, and they're going to take care of that for us. All right, that's manually schedule hearing task. The next task I'd like to show you is postponement request. So let me pull up a case that needs to be postponed. Here we have a case, and there's two different types of postponements that we have available. So let's go into task and new task and take a look and see what those two requests are. Doing the drop down, you can see there's an agency postponement request and a claimant postponement request. Now, usually if the claimant needs to postpone a case, you can refer them to state hearings and we can take care of that for you. But if you so decide, you can do it on behalf of the claimant. If the claimant comes to you and says, hey, I need to postpone my hearing, you can certainly open one of these postponement requests on behalf of the claimant. But please let the claimant know that State Hearings is going to review this request, and they're either going to grant it or deny it. They'll get a letter or a notification letting them know which way we went. And that it's not an automatic grant just because you're putting it in the system. A lot of times the claimant thinks that if you take their request, that means it's going to happen, but that's not the case. So if you were to do that, here are the different fields you would fill out. You put in your notes, and I don't know, they might have fixed this. You might not be able to do a claimant postponement. You might have to refer them to State Hearings. But we also have an agency postponement. Now, these very rarely get granted. I mean, the only reason I think that an agency postponement would be granted is if perchance, I'm thinking if you had a witness that couldn't make the hearing time, the scheduled hearing time for some reason, they may postpone the hearing for you, but it doesn't usually happen. It all depends on when is this case due. Because we get penalized if this case runs over the 90 days. But you can always ask, and again, you will also get a grant or deny notification letting you know whether your postponement request was granted. So you can say something like social worker, witness, not able to attend at scheduled hearing time. And it says hearings to postpone is required, but I don't see a field there. But let's hit save and see what happens. That's a bug. So typically, I am in the training environment, so hopefully this doesn't happen in the the normal environment. But what's happening here is there's a field here that you're supposed to pick the hearing, which is usually hearing. And this field is not showing, even though it's required, so it's tossing me an error message. So I'm definitely going to have to report that. So let me jot this down real quick. 11042. All right. But that's how you would do it. I'm pretty sure that it's working fine in the live environment, but in the training environment, it's broken. So that's the postponement request for the agency. The next task I'm going to show you, I kind of already showed you already. It's the claimant task. You do pretty much exactly the same thing. What happens is you just pick the claimant AR postponement request, fill out the fields, leave the assigned user blank, and you can optionally upload a document just like you can optionally upload a document just like you did for the bifurcation and hit save, and that will go through. The other task that we have is a decision compliance task. It's called Provide Compliance Information. So let's look at a case that has this. So this case is already done and closed. And there's some sort of compliance that El Dorado County needs to do here for this case. So let's take a look at the tasks. And you're going to see an open Provide Compliance Information task. So once El Dorado County has complied with the judge's order for this case, they can close this task out. One way they can do that is by going to this decision compliance queue right here on the home page. And you're going to see the decisions where you need to make some sort of compliance. And you're going to click on that case number, and it's going to take you right to that task. and then you can browse and upload your whatever document that says that you've complied with the judge's order. I believe counties usually have some sort of a compliance form that they use for complying with these sort of orders. And you can put in the date that you completed your compliance. On the drop down, you can just say compliance completed and then hit save. Oh, it's giving me a little bit of an error here. But let's go home and see what happened with that case. Oh, it's still in there. Yeah. So if you run into a compliance thing, it should close for you. Let me try it one more time. See if I can get this to work. Okay, it worked that time. So I think what happened is it didn't like the document that I browsed and put in there. So what I could do is go into this case later on. I close the compliance task, and then I can go into the Documents tab and upload that document that I was trying to upload through the task, my compliance document. So let's go home. This is case number 10924. So let's go home and let's look at that compliance queue now that we've closed it. And you can see that 10924 is not in there anymore. All right, the next task that I would like to show you is the rehearing request task. So let me find a case here that you would like to request a rehearing for. So here's a case that's closed. The decision has been released. And let's just say as an agency, you want a rehearing. So again, you're going to do like all the other ones and hover over task, click new task. Under the drop down for task type, you're going to pick rehearing request agency. Always leave that assigned user blank because somebody here in our rehearing department is going to take a look at that. You can put in your task notes for why you think there should be this case should be reheard. Whether you need it to be expedited or not. Usually it's not. I believe when you request a rehearing, you also send a letter to the claimant. So you might as well upload that letter here. This is not a required field. I'm going to leave it blank. I'm filing today, so I'm going to put today's date in there. And I'm going to hit save. All right, looks like it went through. Let me go take a look at that task listing. And there is my rehearing request. Somebody in our rehearing unit is going to take a look at this agency rehearing request, and they're either going to grant or deny that, and they will let you know. You will get a notification for that. And that is how you do a rehearing request. Now let's work with the responsible agency removal. So here we have a case that's assigned to El Dorado County, but I took a look at all the information and I believe that this is not an El Dorado County case. I think this is really a Sacramento County case. So I need to let state hearings know that they need to change the agency from El Dorado to Sacramento. So I'm going to open a task and it's called Responsible Agency Removal. Again, you're going to leave the assigned user blank because somebody here at State Hearings is going to deal with this. And then you're going to talk about why this agency should be removed. So El Dorado is the claimant's current county of residence. But this appeal is for Sacramento County. when the claimant lived there. So the agency to be removed, of course, is only going to be the agency that you represent. And you're going to hit save. Now you're going to take a look at that task listing just to make sure that you do have that in there. And there it is. And somebody in state hearings is going to take a look at this case. They're going to closely look at the hearing request and the time, and they'll reassign it if that is indeed the case. Either way, you're going to know, because when they do this, they'll let you know if you were removed or not. So that is the responsible agency removal task. Now, for our last task, we're going to do a withdraw request. So I'm going to pick an appeal. And let's just say that I had negotiated a withdrawal with Ms. Betty Anderson, the claimant. So I'm going to do a task, new task. And I'm going to do a withdrawal request. Signed user, you guessed it, it's blank. Under task notes, you can write, I don't know, maybe some information, negotiated, a conditional withdraw with a claimant. And then the withdraw type is down here. So let's say this was a verbal conditional withdrawal. So you talked to the claimant, you both agreed on something. We still need to get something from the claimant kind of verifying that they did that. Let's just say you got an email and you converted that email to a PDF, and you can upload that with this browse button. And once you upload that file along with your withdrawal request, you can hit save. Again, look at the task listing. Let's make sure it's there. It is. And then somebody from state hearings is going to open this up. They're going to take a look at your request. They're going to open up this document that you attached to it. And they're going to confirm this withdrawal. And once it's confirmed, then it's going to be taken off the appeal, off the docket, and this case will be filed as closed withdrawn. All right. I think that pretty much concludes all the different tasks that you can open or work as a county user or a responsible agency user. If you do have any questions regarding any of these different types of tasks and how to do them appropriately, or if you see anything odd, like how that hearing field didn't appear for me even though it was required, please report that to the ACMS support group. And that email is acms@dss.ca.gov. And if you could provide a screenshot, that would be great, along with the case number, so that we can take a look at that and see what's happening, and it'll give us something to start with as far as tracking down why that bug is happening. But hopefully this video was very helpful to you. Again, if you have any questions, acms@dss.ca.gov. Thank you, and be looking forward to some more of the videos on how to use ACMS.